Bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to nobody. I'm a sucker. I'm a big sucker for drama stories. I like them. We gotta that news just dropped 16 minutes ago, and I'm here to make a video on it. I just there's so much dumb shit going on in the world that I just like to show you. We gonna keep them short. I'm gonna shuffle my videos through various times of links. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on notification. Do all that good stuff, or don't. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, like, yeah, it does, but nobody's being forced to nothing. All right. Don't ever let somebody tell you or like put you in a position. Not even me. Don't subscribe. All right. So Lil Durk, yeah, Lil Durk goes off after prosecution response. I'm all in because like there's always another rapper being charged with like homicide, no, with like a murder charge, and I think it's hilarious that all of these idiots they fight like hell to get away from the ghetto, from the bad environment. They fight like hell, but then they portray that gangster mentality on the internet, and they're still in that mindset. Not just in that mindset, they're not leaving those circles. That what makes them vulnerable to charges. They're public figures. What do you expect, bro? Idiots. These are full blown idiots. I have nothing to say. Marlon, let's go, cuff boy.
Our Dirk's team was trying to get rid of OTF evidence like the structure as a gang. Remember the prosecution saying it's a gang and not just a record label. In this document, they say Dirk has.
Okay, prosecutor always telling that. They did that with the YNW, not YNW, but with like that record label that Young Thug was part of.
Multiple witnesses against him saying he paid them to murder this person. And they're going to testify at trial. So yeah, hit subscribe, let's go. Our first thing we got here, government's notice of lodging under seal exhibits, so they're sealing some exhibits, and supplemental memorandum in opposition to defendant bank's motion in limine. The government files a supplemental memorandum to provide the court with additional information related to the motions the court will hear on January 7th. So it sounds like there's a hearing on January 7th in 5 days. As set forth in government's opposition, the related motions are based on an early preliminary disclosure of certain evidence the government intended to introduce at trial. The revised notice makes clear that the evidence described in section 1, quote-unquote, evidence related to OTF.
I'm glad that a lot of that he's reading all of those pages, so I don't have to. I'm major respect to him. Major respect to him.
And Durk Bank's rivalry with TB, quote-unquote, evidence establishing the relationship between co-conspirators and defendants' admissions related to the scheme is direct evidence of and inextricably intertwined with the charge in the second superseding indictment. So they're pointing out this evidence is important because it goes directly to what the accusation is, what the charges are. And now the government starts to shit on Durk's lawyers here. Defense counsel's arguments during the November 18th hearing crystallized the necessity of the disputed evidence. During oral argument on November 18th, counsel for defendant Banks underscored why government's proposed evidence is necessary to prove its case and rebut defendant's core arguments at trial, including that OTF is not a criminal enterprise, that the government's case is built on untrustworthy cooperating witnesses. Indeed, defense counsel rebuked one central.
Bro. Yeah, I thought to myself as well, bro is not getting out. That's like if they can make an example out of a few other rappers, celebrities, they're sure as shit gonna make sure that they make an example out of you. And it's just wild that these people they never why you why you bothering to stay in that environment? There's no reason for you. Chicago Chicago rapper Lil Durk, that was September 13th. It's not a lot of info. Not a lot. Okay, that video came out 17 minutes ago. let's see what the situation is really about. I don't have nothing against like being red, all of that.
For witness is a documented liar, a manipulator, and fraud at the highest order. The government disagrees, and while the defense are free to make these arguments to the jury, they cannot be permitted to do so in a vacuum. As outlined in the government's opposition, the defense cannot credibly dispute that TB and his entourage were stalked for hours across LA, and that SR was brazenly murdered by 3 of the stalkers. Remember, TB is Quando Rondo. The disputed facts and crux of the
Oh,
trial
all
will be
right.
who ordered and participated in the calculated murder and why. The
That
government's opposition
Quando
explained that
man
introducing
appears in
evidence
every
to
other
establish the structure of OTF is
murder
necessary to
trial.
show the
Wild,
relationship
bro.
among the co-conspirators and defendant bank's leadership. So that's a very important sentence right there. Listen up. Obviously, the government wants to put evidence in this trial that shows the structure of OTF as, a gang. They're saying it's a gang that murdered people, pretty much, and put hits out on people, not just a record label. At some point, Durk's lawyers obviously tried to fight that, but, I'm sure the judge is going to let that in. Not just over OTF's legitimate music enterprise, but critically, his knowledge of and involvement in OTF's violence, consistent with the gang murder prosecutions across the country. The evidence to prove these facts will include the testimony of cooperating witnesses. So remember, there's some snitches afoot. People are cooperating. There's going to be witnesses testifying at trial, pointing fingers at people saying they did this. Yes, they did that.
Oh my god.
Straight up. It's up to
That
the
would be
jury
a
if they
shit show.
believe these people. That's what it comes down to. But the defense's job is going to go up there and to make them look like they're lying and they're pieces of shit and they are just doing it in their own self-interest, trying to get out of jail or something. The government's proposed evidence, including defendant Banks' text messages with OTF co-conspirators, threatening rivals, and recruiting conspirators to carry out those threats. It's critical to the government's proving its case and to rebut defendants' claims, including that OTF was merely and solely a
Prime
benevolent
example of an
music
idiot.
enterprise. It sounds like the YSL trial all over again. YSL
Yeah.
was not a gang. It was a record label.
YSL.
Remember, boys.
YSL. It sounds like, yeah, that's what I said. It sounds like the Young Thug trial. There's a lot of stuff that that will make it stick. It will probably turn out like a Young Thug. What is it called? Ending. It probably will have a Young Thug ending, and but I hope they will let that be a lesson. Finally, I mean, like how stupid can you be? There's so many artists. Like in the last video, I said that I always wanted to be a big celebrity and stuff. But like after hearing that Drake lawsuit and other stories, man, of people like they're making millions as well, right? And they're still making millions. That's the beauty of a rapper. You can be in jail and still make money. That's the beauty of it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not gonna sit here and say, yeah, yeah, that's an investment. Maybe kind of is, but, but still, you're making all that money and you're not getting away from what's causing harm to your life and your livelihood and your community. Sounds like full on retardation to me.
The government's proposed evidence also provides critical cooperation of its multiple cooperating witnesses who are anticipated to testify that defendant Banks ordered the violence in
Cooperating
LA, use intermediaries, including defendant Wilson, to recruit others to carry out the scheme, and promise reward for carrying out their murder. Holy fuck. Multiple cooperating witnesses saying Durk did this. He hired his boys to go kill Quando Rondo in LA, but they killed Quando's cousin or whatever on accident. Crazy shit. Preventing these cooperating witnesses from testifying about OTF's connection to criminality would deprive the jury of information necessary to resolve the disputed facts in this case. If you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe. I appreciate the support. Back to the video, boys. Accordingly, the government's proposed evidence provides essential material context to show the co-conspirators' criminal relationship and corroborate the anticipated testimony that the conspirators acted at defendant Banks and his trusted intermediaries' direction. From the onset of this case, the government has never alleged that OTF is purely a criminal enterprise. Rather, the government's position is that a subset of members, including defendants charged in this case, operated consistent with the street gang. What did I say? They're gonna say it's a gang and shit. They're trying to.
Yeah, that make it sound like YSL, and that's not gonna stick. But like maybe some single actions like the hip for hire and stuff like that. That will crush him. That will crush him. And like TK, that's like that's rap that are not coming out. Don't feel too invincible. Don't feed into the God complex that you might creating. Never, never feel too safe, because that's when they get you. Or like that's when life full circles your ass.
put evidence of that, obviously. As the discovery shows that during the relevant time, OTF operated both as a legitimate music enterprise with a group of members, including defendant Banks, Wilson, and Houston, who operated consistent with the street gang, seeking revenge and perpetuating violence on behalf of OTF. Citing United States v. Smith, a drug conspiracy case from 2002, the district court admitted that the evidence the defendant participated in a drug operation and purchased several kilograms of drugs from a leader. Evidence of prior criminal acts may be relevant in conspiracy cases to show background and development of the conspiracy. Prior criminal endeavors with the leader would help the government provide the background and development of the conspiracy. It would help explain why the leader trusted enough to include him in the risky scheme. Hold on, they're trying to show the jury prior criminal shit? Interesting. Contrary to counsel's claims, the evidence shows that defendant Banks and his close OTF associates, including the defense in this case, had rivalries, discussed violence against rivals, and took violent street action to settle scores with their rivals, including the LA murder defendants are alleged to have committed in this case. Defendants are free to argue that OTF was all about music, but the jury cannot be called on to resolve that issue in an alternate reality of limited and misleading facts. Jesus, bro. The court should deny related motions and permit the government to introduce disputed evidence at trial. Exhibit A, under seal. God dang it. Exhibit B, under seal. So they explained why they wanted these under seal, by the way. I'm going to read why those are under seal right here. United States of America requests this court seal the government's exhibits A, B, attached to the government's notice of lodging, blah, blah, blah. For the reasons described in the attack declaration, the above described documents discuss and contain identifying information of unindicted co-conspirators and or witnesses who participate in the government's investigation who may testify at trial, whose safety or whose family safety may be endangered by disclosure of identifying information. Sealing of the documents is therefore desirable because the government believes that public disclosure of such information may endanger the witnesses or their family's safety and could cause others to attempt to intimidate the witnesses.
Of course, it's always about the safety of witnesses. And bro, keep him locked up. If he actually done that, if he's still a danger to society, why are you playing gangster after making millions? Wasn't that the whole point? That what 50 Cent quote is all about, and that's why I respect him. Like, keep those individuals away. I mean, yeah, they may be talented, but what so? They're poison. They're absolute dog water when it comes to that. Putting out hits, bro. I'm so glad that King One got murked. Well deserved. Well deserved. You playing the game of the devil, and you're still a piece of shit to the community. It's absolutely. I don't wish no harm on nobody, but dude, keep them locked up if they're doing such things.
Or their family. So there you have it. That's why it's under seal. They're protecting witnesses and their families from being threatened. And of course, the defense is going to say, like every other defense lawyer always says, there's no evidence of witness intimidation in this case or witness tampering whatsoever. This is horse shit. Shouldn't be under seal. But on December 31st, 2 days ago, the government informed defense counsel that it would be seeking to file these documents under seal. As of date, the government has not received any objection from the defense counsel. Oh, surprising. It has only been 2 days. And one of them was New Year's. So next thing I have here is, remember there was threats to the judge and to attorneys in this case for the government. Defense team is clapping back at that situation again. The question that they refuse to answer, barely even acknowledge, leaves a dark gaping hole in their response that should deeply concern the court. The question is, why not just tell the defense? Why did they withhold this information for 7 months? Why did they secret away the fact that the assigned magistrate judge has been subjected to multiple threatening messages, even when they knew the same judge would be presiding over the subsequent hearings? Why not give the defense a heads up when the assigned lead prosecutor to the case also received a threatening phone call just days before they presented to the grand jury on the second superseding indictment? The lack of direct response to any of these questions is glaring. The government references this issue without providing justification, only from a defensive posture. Defense cite no rule, statute, or case showing a clear basis in fact and law that the prosecutors in this case committed any misconduct by deciding to disclose the threats on October 1st, 2025. The government disclosed the threats when they became relevant to the case, when the government relied on the threats in support of its motion for an anonymous jury. Jesus, Drew Findling is not happy about this. When the government becomes aware of the credible death threats directed at presiding judge or lead prosecutor in a pending criminal case, it has a duty as an officer of the court to disclose the information to defense before pre-trial hearings, especially substantive ones dealing with the accused's liberty, even where the magistrate judge personally received the threats. Undisclosed threats against a judicial officer create an objective appearance of impartiality, concerning that the defense are entitled to raise and litigate contemporaneously, because due process protects not only against actual bias, but against procedures that undermine public confidence and judicial neutrality. Jesus, big ass words. Basically saying these motherfuckers have a duty to tell the defense. And they set a case too from 1987 Old as shit. By withholding notice of threats while litigating detention and other pretrial matters, the government deprived defendants of opportunity to seek
Nice.
recusal and or other protective relief at the moment judicial discretion was exercised, a structural due process violation that cannot be cured after the fact. Jeez, that's some crazy shit right there. Them boys saying it's a due process violation and can't be fixed, pretty much. To make matters worse, this suppression of relevant information and non-disclosure was not limited to a single prosecutor like Williams, but instead was institutional in scope. This conduct strikes at the heart of fairness of these proceedings and warrants dismissal. The government attempts to recast the defendant's position as one that asserts the government was quote-unquote required to provide the defense with immediate updates about investigation into threats or improper attempts to influence individuals connected to this case. The defense has never made such cavalier suggestion that there was an immediate duty. Instead, at the very least, the government had a duty to disclose this information to defense prior to substantive hearings concerning defense liberty and pretrial motion hearings. Rather than disclose as required, the government suppresses information from the defense for several months, allowing bail hearings and other substantive motions to go forward without so much as a word about literal death threats to the tribunal, the courthouse, and lead prosecutor, who is responsible for making tactical, strategic, and charging decisions in this case. The government's repeated attempts to minimize the threats fails when one considers the plain reality of the situation. An anonymous caller seemingly tied to the defendant, in this case threatened to shoot up the prosecutor and burn down the courthouse if the defendant were sentenced to life. With that in mind, the magistrate judge made material rulings in this case, and the prosecutors argued the defendants were dangerous. Oh, I get what they're saying. So they're saying this like swayed the judge's mind, that since they're getting death threats, this shit's all dangerous. He can't get out on bail type shit. I get what they're saying. It's a little bit of a reach, because I think anyone charged federally, sadly, no matter what, these charges are too serious to get bail, right? Like, has that
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
ever happened in a federal case? You're charged with murder for hire, you're not getting bail. I feel like that never happens anyway. So, magistrate judge partiality could have been discussed at a hearing. The government withholding information. The defense was unable to raise a question. Defense was also prevented from making tactical and strategic decisions about seeking recusal and/or disqualification of the court or counsel at the time. The government is satisfied by their hypothetical might have happened or even probably happened scenario. But assumptions don't protect against constitutional violations. Even if the magistrate judge was not made impartial by the threats, as the government contends, the issue still should have been resolved through briefing and/or evidentiary hearing. The government is avoiding all responsibility for its own failures and hopes this court will close its eyes to the irreparable harm done to the defendants. At the very least, the prosecutors overseeing this case should be disqualified. Jeez, bro. This trial's apparently set for January. I don't know how that's happening because Melly also has a trial at the end of January, and they had the same lawyer.
Yeah, I'm so excited about his outcome. Bro, I just think these people need the outcome they deserve. I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, they deserve like 20 years, 30 years, 100 years. But like, how can you still feed into that bullshit after trying to get away? That was the whole plan, right? That was the whole fucking plan, to get away from that cesspool of idiocracy. That was the whole plan, wasn't it? You can tell me whatsoever. It's there's no excuse. Lock them up, keep them, and make them pay. Make them pay for the state, not the taxpayer. If a millionaire is locked up for doing devious dumb shit, he should pay. There's no there's nothing to argue in my opinion. Hope you liked it. Hope that brain rot finally ends, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it won't. I hope on one side it doesn't. So I still have shit to talk about because, okay, let's be fair. Dumbness never ends. But this video is now. See you later.